Thank you so much, Dr. Elizabeth, for joining the podcast show today on We Don't Play. How are you?
I am doing fabulous, fabulous. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. I'm so glad that we've been able to connect here and bring you on the show because there's so many things that people can learn from you, especially when you reach out to people and deal with a lot of people when it comes to empowerment, youth. We hear all these things every day, but you're bringing it to us in full capacity. So I'm excited.
I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to serve the buffet line.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I would love for you
Yes.
to tell us, just to start off, how did you get started into this? What's your background like? Because normally there's a passion, there's something that happens that ignites the fire. So what was that fire that was ignited for you?
That's a great question. And so for me, I think just the bottom line, I am very big on justice and big on speaking out on things that I see are unjust in whatever way. So I remember in school growing up, and I would see a bullying, or somebody just being mean to somebody. I do not like when people are just cold-hearted mean. Just that mean. There's no reason for it. That person has not done anything, and you're just mean, and you are being mean to somebody that has no power to do anything. A bully unfortunately always bullies somebody a little smaller than them in whatever way, and that person is powerless. And when I see that, whether that is in real life or even in a movie or reading about it, I just get so emotional. I'm mad. I want to cry. I want to scream. So listening to my responses on things, whether it's a story about a woman being violated or whether it's about a child being abused by a parent or somebody in school, when I see those things, just the emotions that rise up for me are just a reminder that if I have a voice in that moment, or if I have even something to do or say, even if it's a kind of word to undo what that person has experienced, I know I may not be able to remove or undo it, but if all I can do is give kindness and tell the story about what is happening, then I do that. So for me, that passion has always been there. And it's just a matter of realizing it. And as I came to be of age and getting into the field and career I'm in, I'm able to see that in advocacy and in speaking out against things that are wrong. And I really believe in telling the story, especially for those people that have never been the authors of their own story, telling them and simply standing beside them and saying, hey, this is their story. Rather than me talk, let's listen to them, because nobody can tell that story better than they can. So that has just always been there, and I try to never limit or shut in that emotion and feeling, and I walk away wanting to do something.
I love that. Walking away to do something shows that you have that passion and zeal to keep up and follow up too. Because sometimes when people go through those things, they don't know what's going to be the outcome. They don't know who to turn to. They don't know how to even diagnose what they're going through because there's so much pressure from outside.
Yeah.
What have you seen in the past or in the recent times that people have been going through that you could be able to step in and solve if they can't solve it themselves?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I'll flip it in a different way and say sometimes it's not about really solving, it's just about doing something, refusing to do nothing. When good men stay silent. I know that's a quote that I'm not sure who has said it, but some great smart person has. When good people do nothing, right? And I believe I am that good person. So it may not be to solve it, but it may just be to bring awareness of it. Because sometimes we want to live in a rose-colored kind of world. There's a lot of bad things that are happening, unfortunately, in society, right? And sometimes one way to cope with that is to just put on some blinders and say it doesn't exist, right? So even just bringing awareness. If an elephant walks into this room, I'm gonna say, hey guys, whether you don't want to acknowledge it, there's an elephant in this room. So sometimes even just giving voice to what is happening, giving voice to that discomfort, giving voice to things that are happening. We're seeing a lot of things right now in reality, with women in the Middle East, right? With so many gender violences and issues where we are reminded that women still do not have rule and say over their own body and over their own choices. And so things like that allow me to and remind me that as a woman, I do not understand their plight in that way. And it's not about me understanding, it's about me looking and saying, that is a fellow woman, that is a fellow human being. What can I do? On what would I want done in that situation? And when I make a decision on what to do, if you're going through something, Favor, I don't know, I can never experience it, right? But what I can ask myself is, if I was in that part right now, what would I want people around me to do? How would I want to be treated? How would I want to feel in that moment? And whatever the answer is, that is exactly what I do. So if I would feel you would not want somebody to turn away and ignore what you're going through, then I'm not going to turn away, but I'm going to showcase it and tell people, hey, this is happening and we have to be aware. And some of our greatest battles that we win on injustice and other things, they simply start with somebody calling it out and saying, this is happening. You may not know it, but this is happening. And I don't pretend to be the expert on all things, but it's an opportunity for me to learn. What is a historical nature that is causing this to happen in this moment? And I become a student to understand, how did we get to where we are? Because something had to happen for this reality to be. Something had to happen for Black people in this country to continue losing their lives. So it was not just one thing, but what is that mix of all things? And as I learned that, I can see where I fit in the table. And that could simply be knowing that it's happening and knowing that what I do adds to the outcome of all that. Me being silent, me being okay with soft microaggressions is not okay, right? I can call that out and call attention to that in my everyday, in hopes that another Elizabeth, another Favor, another John, another Karen, another person will also follow suit and model maybe in my reality what I have done. And together we can make this huge ripple effect from the grassroots all the way to the top, right? So sometimes it's just allowing yourself to see and to understand what's happening, and then to ask yourself, what can I do? Well, if that was my mom, if that was my dad, what would I do? And I'm a big proponent of do unto others as you have done unto yourself. And I'm not perfect, and sometimes I don't respond in the way I should, but it's a learning moment, right? And that keeps me grounded in trying to figure out what can I do to change this reality at some point, hopefully now. But even if it is not now, knowing that maybe that small thing I did will make a difference 5, 10, 20, 30 years from now for another woman, for another person.
That's beautiful. You know, now that you've mentioned this, one thing came to my mind as you were speaking was, there are some people who are introverts, there are people who are extroverts, and there are people who are ambiverts. So if we look at the introverts who don't really say much or speak out, how can they express themselves to the point where they can feel helped as opposed to just feeling closed in?
Yeah. Are you talking about if maybe they're dealing with something and
Possibly.
okay, a cry for help? That's a very good question. And believe it or not, I consider myself an introvert, really an ambivert.
Oh.
I can match your vibe. I will match your vibe that you give me, but my natural state is to just be chill and relaxed, right? And there are times where it can be hard for me to express myself in some way. But it's in those moments that people that really know me, that I have created that space for them to know me, will be able to say, Elizabeth, you good? My, or they know me and how I deal with stress, and they're like, wow, you really got triggered by that, or you really went high and there was no reason to combust. What's going on? So for those, I would say build a tribe of people that really know you without even speaking, right? For me, I'm blessed to have the best siblings in the world and the best family and the best friends. And I'm just thankful to God for that. It's not something I did, but it's just what it is. And I'm thankful for that and know that, and I am aware that that is not everybody's reality. I would so desire for them to have this reality where their family is safe, their family is a good space for them rather than toxic. So for me, I'm thinking about my sister. She can tell by just how I walk into a room. Elizabeth needs space. Elizabeth does not even want a hello. And I will just respond in when she knows that. She knows that there's something there and I may want her to ask me, but I don't know how. So she reads the room. She reads the room, my room, and she's able to pull that out of me and then get me to talk about it without making me feel defensive or offensive in any way. So I would say pick people to be around that you can allow yourself to show all versions of yourself, whether that's one person. Create that space. If you don't have it where you are right now, dislocate yourself from that and find a place. And it does take time. It does take time to do that. But if you invest in those relationships, if you invest in those spaces, where you can truly be yourself and people can know when you're going through something and your cry for help is really even more silenced than is normal, then they can pitch in there. But also find other safe spaces. We have great practitioners, right? We have counselors, we have life coaches, we have therapists, right? We have trained professionals that they're trained and all they exist to do is to give space, is to hold that space for you. So maybe you may not be able to find it with somebody that you're connected to, but be courageous enough to look for that, even virtually. COVID has really flipped how we interact and how we access services. And so there are professionals out there, from life coaches, if you just want somebody to walk and work with you on something you're working towards. And their job is not to give criticism that will hurt you. Their job is to really call out and help you navigate challenges. Pursue that. If it's maybe something you've gone through, a traumatic situation, and you do want to talk and walk through it, but you have nobody to walk through it, therapy is gold, right? Therapy is gold, and you can find somebody in person, or you can find somebody virtually that can hold that space for you and read the room enough and get to know you very well to be able to know how to interject and walk you through those situations. So that's what I would say for our introverts.
Yeah,
And
thank
really,
you.
yeah.
Sorry, I didn't hear that last part. Sorry.
No, I meant to say, and really anybody, not just the introverts, but anybody, because sometimes the loudest person in the room may be yelling the most hurtful things, but we never hear it because we see they're living, they're vibing, they have nothing going on, right? So even our extroverts, or the people that we would expect to cry for help, our strong people, they may not be able to. So this applies to everybody.
That is so true. And that also boils into mental health. People think, oh, mental health, yeah, it's okay. But there are people who actually go through mental health crisis and they don't have people to turn to, especially in this part of the world. We get to see a lot of people say, hey, I'm by myself. I don't have anyone to take care of me, compared to when you're back home, or when maybe you're in a place where you have family and support systems. How does someone deal with that? Because they can't call a friend and the friend doesn't even have time for them because they're also going through the same problem. So they can't relate or can't have that accountability partner. So what are the best ways for people to go through mental health and not feel like they're by themselves?
Yeah, that's also another great point, and it's a definitely a much needed conversation. And I will give full disclosure: I'm not a mental health expert in any means of the imagination or in licensing and all that. I just know that one thing I would say, and I always say, is mental health is health, and we tend to forget that our emotional well-being, our mental well-being is a big part of our everyday well-being. And in society at large, we know what we need to do when somebody has a cold, right? Like right now, I was in Arizona last week and I caught a cold, a summer cold, I don't know. And I was telling my mom, and she goes, ginger, lemon, turmeric, do it, everything. And I'm like, whoa, mom, okay. So we know the precautions to take when we have a cold. We know what to do when our back is hurting, because these are normalized things that the body goes through, right? If you tell me you have a cold, I don't look at you like, why do you have a cold? What you do? That's not cool. So even our responses to how people say, hey, I'm dealing with depression, or I'm dealing with really some big anxiety. We as a society don't know how to respond. And the reason we don't know how to respond is either that's something new to us, quote unquote, or that is something that we have seen other people get stigmatized for. So we just shut it down, like, oh, if you're in the faith world, oh, just pray about it. The joy of the Lord is your strength. Yeah, the joy is just my strength. But right now, it ain't strengthening. The math is not mathing. I am not joyful. I am not happy. I'm feeling some type of way. So we have been taught how to respond. And the response to people that are dealing with mental health challenges is to shut them down. You're doing something. What did you do? You're being punished, or something's wrong with you. When the truth of the matter, there's nothing wrong with them in terms of the same way we have colds, we have diabetes, we have cancer, we also have depression, we have anxiety, we have all these other things. And I think we as a society have to become aware that mental health illnesses are real, and it is not the fault of the individual that is dealing with that. So awareness has to be. And then we have to let the experts be the ones to really guide the conversation. Because when we let myself or others guide the conversation, we create stigma, right? We create a lot of stigma. And stigma is a bad thing. It can keep you quiet, it can keep you silent, it can keep you hurting. And it's not that, Favor, you and I were told that depression is bad, but how we saw society deal with it, how we saw our culture deal with it. We were taught, we picked that up as something taboo and very bad. So we may not even be able to say it or speak it to even our very close spaces. So mental health is a good thing in terms of we need to be mentally healthy. The challenges that come with mental health, the same way when your immune system physically is low, you're more likely to get some types of illnesses. If your behaviors, how you eat, how you drink, how you do these is poor, you are more likely to have cardiovascular disease or diabetes or whatever. Mental illnesses are a little bit different. It's not that I did something in order to get this. It's just that maybe it's a chemical imbalance, right? And so it's physiological as well. And we have to have our mental health practitioners be the ones to actually diagnose. And sometimes we write off feeling bad. Yes, we all have bad days. We all have bad days, right? And we have days where we just feel sad, and we can't really put a finger on why. But if that continues to where it disrupts our everyday life, being able to cope in in life, being able to take care of ourselves, to take care of others, when those disruptions now become continuous, then we have to say, I may be dealing with something a little bit bigger than just having a bad day because Favor didn't call me, or because I had an argument with my mother or somebody else. It could be something deeper. And the only way to know that is to go to the doctor, to be able to assess. And I can't diagnose myself. The same way, if I'm dealing with, let's say I have hypertension, I have to have somebody read my blood pressure and do a little bit more to find out, hey, you have high blood pressure, and we got to do something about it to manage it so it does not lead to something else, right? So with mental health awareness in terms of what is good emotional health, right? What happens when our mental well-being is challenged and when our mental well-being is not at full capacity? Then we have a mental illness, right? So mental health is a state of being mentally, emotionally. When I am emotionally sick, in terms of maybe I'm dealing with depression or I'm dealing with anxiety, that is a mental illness, right? And that we respond to it, and we should respond to it the same way we would respond if I have a physical illness. And so these conversations have to be had so we can normalize mental illnesses, so we can normalize that there are individuals in our families or even ourselves that are dealing with things that just won't go away because I prayed about it, or just won't go away because I heard a good song, or they just won't go away, like shake it off, whatever. Some things we can't shake it off, and that's okay. And that's why our mental health practitioners come in, our counselors, our psychologists, our psychiatrists, to really guide the conversation on what is depression, what is anxiety, what is bipolar disorder, what is this, so we can also understand and see and know that we should never stigmatize that individual. So by us responding, we are keeping people quiet, and it may lead to their demise. It may lead to suicide, and suicide is a preventable consequence, right? It's preventable. And when we manage these challenges, when we manage illnesses, and we have practitioners that are guiding us and working with us, we're able to prevent the outcome of suicide. But we can never prevent it if we don't even know that this person is hurting and bleeding. So that's what I would say is awareness, you and I talking about it in a way that does not make that person feel bad and feel like they did something wrong, and being aware enough to know this is beyond me. But hey, let me walk with you. Let me go with you to seek help. Let me walk with you to seek help. I cannot give you the help you need, but I can definitely hold your hand and take you there. That's what you and I can do, in response to that.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that. That's really, really insightful because, lastly, I wanted to talk about, the area in teaching. Because what you've said is so important, especially when you notice, let's say your students are not feeling good, or they're not in the right space, or that this student is brilliant but they're underperforming, meaning that there might be something going on with their personal issues. How are you able to diagnose that and still be able to deliver that quality and value without having to be encroaching or filling into their space in a way?
That's first. I love teaching. I love everything that has to do with teaching, and I enjoy working and being amongst our students. And students are just like me. And the main thing and the important thing that sometimes we forget is the power of relationship building. Just that, right? Getting to know that person. Because if now if you're in my class and I've gotten to know you, I've gotten to know what your passions are. Why did you decide to pursue, for example, a degree in public health, which is what I teach, right? And I get to know you. And then in my classes, I get to know, for example, your writing style. I get to know your habits. And I can say, wow, very committed, hardworking, struggles with this, but that's okay. We will walk in step with that. Um, and once I get to know you a little bit better, I'm able to see when you deviate from that and just have a bad day. I'm like, hey, then because we have a relationship, I'm able to say, hey, Faber, I noticed you didn't come to class today. Or I noticed, this. Is everything okay? Or I noticed you turned in that work late. Is everything okay? Right? Yes, there will be consequences for not doing work, right? But even as I give you that 0 for now, I can say, hey, let me know if it was just you chose not to turn it in. Let me not assume, oh, he doesn't care. Let me seek out and say, email me, let me know. We can talk about maybe what we can do. Maybe not for this grade, but for the next one. Or even if it is for this assignment that you missed, what can you do? Or maybe I noticed that, wow, you really didn't put as much thought as you usually put in to work. If I've had you in class for 10 weeks now, and every week you are turning something in that you've written, and then you turn in something completely different. Or maybe if I look online and I see that you pulled a lot of that content and all you did was just copy paste, I'm going to reach out and say, I noticed this, right? And we do have policies. There are policies. So if you cheat, there is a policy. If you plagiarize, those are policies. But even as we uphold those policies, that relationship building that I did at the very beginning is very important, because I'm able to now come and find out what's going on. And I use it as a growing moment for you and I say, I understand life can go the way it can. And we all have days where we forget. We literally forgot that something was due. I've done it. And I can, as a teacher, say they should also pay attention, because I've missed work, right? I have not done my very best. But I loved teachers. I came back and said, hey, Elizabeth, I noticed that you didn't, the quality was not as good as it usually is. And I'm not expecting you to be perfect every time, but I know you well enough to know that this, you may not be happy with the work you did. What's going on? Is everything okay? And that everything okay question creates space for me and that student to be able to say, yeah, I'm going through a lot right now, right? And there's usually almost something, especially for students that have been consistent in one way. There's usually something, and because of that relationship, you're able to come and tell me, and I'm able to say, hey, because I know policies and other things that we can make sure maybe we need to pause. I know this degree is very important to you. I know that. But your health is equally as important, if not more important. Yeah. Your mental well-being is more important than this class in this moment. So giving them the permission to sit out or to pause, right? And saying, here's the Office of Student Affairs, reach out and tell them that even though it's too late to drop the class, we don't want this class to hurt your GPA. So those conversations can only come out through that relationship that I first built with them at the very beginning. And the more time I put into that relationship, and I create space and I humanize the education world and say, hey, I give examples of my mistakes. So I give examples of where I haven't done too good, and I normalize just being human. Then they are able to be human with me and say, Dr. E, I'm not doing too well right now. There's a lot of stuff going on. Can I have extension? I'm not going to be able to turn in this work when it's due on Sunday. Can I get it to you by midweek? I would rather that, right? And then turn something in that even they know is subpar. And that just is that kindness. And will that happen in the real world when we go into the career field? I believe so. I believe our employers can be able to know that Elizabeth is not just calling it off and being lazy. For her to tell me this, there was really a lot going on, right? There was really a lot, and rather than her jeopardize her work and the quality of it, she spoke out. And that goes back again to being kind and creating spaces where you can speak out when there are challenges, even if it is to your boss. And I believe that every boss should want their employees to survive and to be successful. It's not about just meeting deadlines. When our employees are happy, they feel appreciated, they work in a safe space, they're going to even be more productive than you expect them to be. And the same thing with my students. If I create an environment that I show them you can be successful and I want you to be successful and I am here to walk with you. Now, I have my expectations and they already know those, right? And I hold them to that. But I do so in such a way that they can still know Dr. E will respect and appreciate honesty and will appreciate me coming to her ahead of time and letting her know rather than it has happened or, circumstances. So for me, relationship building is very important. And that really sets the tone for the semester. So when I have to give a student a failing grade because they cheated or they plagiarized, they already know that I'm morally, I'm going to do what is right, morally, right? But we can do it in such a way that even if the consequences are what they are, that relationship is still there, and they'll come back and say, Dr. E, I'm going to do better next time. I say, got it, let's do it.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for giving these examples. I'm sure it has definitely helped a lot of people to tap in and just ask themselves, am I doing the right thing? Am I in the right space? Can I give myself time? Because some people don't give themselves time to process. Yeah. So it's a big thing. If there's one thing you can leave with us, if there's anything that they need to take from today's conversation, what would that one thing be?
That one thing will go back to the beginning of our conversation when I talked about justice and being kind. We should respect and value everybody because they are human beings like us. And if we approach life in that way, I may be mad at you and want to inflict pain or may want to hurt you, but when I recognize the humanity in you, it gives me pause to not do that. And if we value kindness is so simple, so simplistic, but man, if we just purpose to be kind to everybody, regardless of whether they're never going to do anything for us, whether they're not our boss, whether they're not this, just because they are a human being. Let us value people as human beings and not the identities and the accolades and the money that they have or the titles that they have, simply because they're a human being. And so be kind to one another, to see humanity as it is humanity, and it's something to be valued. And once we do that, we're going to respect all people. And then know that the kindness that you give can make a ripple effect. It can stop injustice. It can really stop somebody from doing something to another human being because they remember, Elizabeth, I did not deserve Elizabeth's kindness. But because she values me as an individual, as a human being, she gave me that kindness. They may do that to that other person. And I know it seems so simplistic and so positive, but I have to believe that in us all is the power to identify another human being. And there's still something in us to value humanity. And if we operate from that place, and we then operate from do unto others as you would have done unto yourself, that kindness in action, we can change the atmosphere, we can change realities, and now we can start listening to one another. We can start, if I give you kindness, I'm going to give you space to speak, and I'm going to be willing to listen and understand. And if I'm willing to listen and understand communication, we can all start speaking the same language where we respect people just because they are people. We are kind to people simply because they are people and they deserve to be shown kindness. And so purpose to do that, even to those who do wrong to you, because I am a Christian and I believe that God sees all, and how I respond, it may not change your trajectory, but for me, my truth still remains that I did all I could to be kind to that person. And then I remove myself, because that's not a space I need to be in, right? That's not a space I need to be in. So I remove myself. So kindness to all people, and then realizing that you cannot change all people. There are some people that, for whatever reason, are just going to be sour and bitter. But that's not my reality. That's not my reality. And I may just have to relocate myself from that and go somewhere else. And as I do that, I hope what I will leave with that person is that there's kindness, and we all have a role to play in that. And yeah, and just do good to all people, and give kindness. Even if you're correcting somebody, be kind in that. Just be kind and do unto others as you would have done unto yourself.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This has been one of the episodes. I definitely know it's more of self-reflection and also life lessons as well, because these are things that we hear every day, but we don't apply them because we are too busy. But if we apply them day by day, it gets better and becomes a second nature for us. So this was so helpful. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. If there's any way they can reach out to you, maybe they want to connect with you or book a call, or just find out, hey, how can I learn more from you? What are the best ways they have possible to reach you?
Absolutely. So on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, I go by Talks with E. Talks with E. I talk a lot about all kinds of random things. I am a eclectic person. So Talks with E on Facebook, on Instagram, or you can just Google Dr. Elizabeth Wachira, and baby, I'm gonna come up, right? It's gonna be right there. First few lines. That SEO analytics is working for my good.
Hey.
So you can find me on Google. I'm Googleable. Talks with E on my social media handles. And hey, shoot a message. Introduce yourself. Please don't send a blind shot. Hi. Hello. Make it a full sentence. Hello, Elizabeth. This is 1, 2, 3. And then we go from there.
Thank you. I'm sure they will definitely reach out, and if you guys are looking for that information, it's in the show description notes as well. And definitely, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, or just directly reach out to Dr. Elizabeth, and you will be able to get all your questions answered. And I'm so glad you're able to be here. Definitely looking forward to connecting with you again. But this has been a stellar episode, so I really appreciate you. I appreciate your time as well. And thank you so much for being here. God bless.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome.